Big Ten schools have made significant progress coming together on compromises. As we told you yesterday, schools in the Big Ten have really worked diligently this week to try and get this TV situation resolved. The news broke earlier that, hey, that deal's not on paper. In fact, there are large chasms to be spun to get that deal done. And now we know that a lot of those were about scheduling conflicts. Today, the news breaks that Penn State is going to play Michigan State at Ford Field, the home of the Detroit Lions. That's a huge concession from Penn State. So you can see what we reported on the show happens today, and it continues, because I think what you're going to see is Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, the three biggest brands currently in the Big Ten, are going to have to bend the knee. They're going to have to compromise, but nobody in this conference and nobody in the know about what's happening with this TV deal has said one time that this thing was falling apart, because it's never been coming apart. We've told you that since Monday. There's never been an indication that this deal for the Big Ten, Fox Sports, CBS, and NBC was going to fall apart. It was simply a matter of getting some details ironed out. Now, there is still one big hurdle in the Big Ten to work out, and that is the compensation piece and how you're going to move finances around to give Fox what they were originally promised, because now they're not going to have that championship game in 2026, which is going to NBC. That's a huge problem. It's going to be very difficult to do that. There may be a rebate involved, less payments involved, but at the end of the day, Jake, I have no doubt in my mind that this deal is going to be fine. They're going to come out of this intact. In fact, I think when this deal is finally done, you're going to see this is the best TV deal that's ever been done in college athletics.
Yeah, and I think it's the last great TV deal as well. I think it's the last one that you're going to get that's going to be huge dollar valuation, and everyone benefits from it. I think moving forward, schools are becoming more and more selfish, and schools, whether it's the ACC conversation in their situation, whether it's the Pac-12, you have these different situations where schools are quite upset that they are carrying the load of the conference, yet they're not getting paid on par with some of the best teams in the nation. And so when I look at the Big Ten situation, I do truly believe that, yes, the deal will get done, and I do believe it is the last great TV deal, because I just don't see how ESPN or any of these TV partners continue to shell out even more, because that's kind of been the trajectory. Hey, we're going to keep climbing, right? It's like quarterback contracts in the NFL. At some point, the well is going to run dry. At some point, the TV provider is not going to be able to handle, $200 million a year per school or some ridiculous number. Like, that's not going to happen. So that's why I say I think this Big Ten deal is going to be historic, but I do think it is going to be the last of its kind. But hey, again, that's for down the road, right? We got all kinds of time to talk about that. The task at hand is that, yes, this deal is going to get done. Yes, Penn State did blink. And yes, Kevin Warren did leave a pile of, issues for
burning dung on their doorstep.
Yeah, like you left a pile of crap that's on fire, for Tony Petitti. And that's not a great look, but it does seem like Tony is finding his way just fine. So I think that's good news if you're a Big Ten fan.
Yeah, and sources told us today that these deals are largely, the biggest hurdles in these deals are largely done as far as scheduling and who's agreeing to go there, where, and USC and UCLA, they're going to have to travel a significant distance early in this deal for them. They are going to have to make concessions on travel, which I think they know that they're going to have to do that. But the other part of this very clearly is that you have a situation where the Big Ten is far from done expanding, and they are chasing expansion. Sources told us today that the Big Ten is being very aggressive and has made their feelings to Oregon and Washington very well known. I am told directly that Oregon and Washington are well aware that their ability to join the Big Ten still exists. And I am told that they have had productive conversations that are not new. And I think one of the things that a lot of people assume is that Oregon and Washington, that these are new conversations. These are months and months old conversations. These go back to our reporting in October and November, where President Cauce at Washington was very clear. This deal for the Pac-12 cannot be on streaming. And they have never, not one time, in that span of time from October, November until now, been close on a TV deal that was ever going to get a grant of rights done in the Pac-12. And I think every day, week, and month that's gone on now, what you've seen is schools have continued to explore their options beyond the Pac-12. There is this reporting today that, hey, the Big Ten is ready and they're aggressive. They absolutely are. But I will tell you again, whether it is Oregon and Washington or Colorado, nobody today is ready to make an announcement. Nobody today is firing off press releases saying we're changing conferences. The fact of the matter is they're going to wait until the very last second to make that move, because there is no win, there is no gain for anybody in the Pac-12 to jump a second too soon. There simply is not. Whether that is Colorado, Arizona, Oregon, or Washington, there just is no win there for them to be the first one out of the conference. So that's why I think when you hear people saying there was this report out of the Oklahoman that said, hey, Colorado's ready to jump now, maybe. Like I believe it quite literally said Colorado could be ready to jump to the Big 12 soon. When you hear stuff like that, you got to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because we've told you directly for months and months now that Colorado is much like Arizona State. I would tell you much like Utah, much like Oregon and Washington. They're going to go if they have to go. But Colorado is far, far more willing to stay than anybody is reporting. That does not mean they won't leave. That does not mean that that's a decision they're not willing to make. I think Colorado has made the decision, much like every other of the 10 teams remaining in the Pac-12. They've made their decision. If it's less than $25 million, we're going to the Big 12. If it's more than $25 million, we are not going to the Big 12. I think, frankly, that's where all 10 of these teams are. They will leap if it's less than $25 million. The news here, though, is whether it is Oregon and Washington in the Big Ten, where it is, if it is Colorado, this is coming to a head. Yeah. And we've told you for several weeks now, we believe early in June is when this will all come to a head, because I don't believe any of these administrators want to go on summer break with this lingering, with this hanging over their head. I again will tell you, use Washington State in the story we broke first and exclusively right here on the show. I believe it was Monday night. Use the Washington State story as a cautionary tale. That is a university with a small athletic budget. And they are struggling financially. They are struggling to justify the amount of money that they are making on athletics versus the amount of money they are spending on athletics. And this is a story that is being told in a lot of universities in the Pac-12 right now, and that includes Cal, that includes Stanford, that includes Arizona, who is frustrated with the revenue proposition that they have faced over the last 3 years because it has not been good, and a lot of it largely is tied to their basketball failings and the scandal that they're coming out of now that they seemingly have left behind in basketball. But Arizona's another one that I'm told has had financial issues. These schools do not want to go. But trust me when I tell you, there are 10 universities in the Pac-12 today that have made a decision. And when it is time and when all the facts are known, they will let those decisions be known. And I don't think they're going to do it a second before they have to.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no incentive for them to do that. And that's what I think is kind of the big misnomer still about the Pac-12 situation. A lot of people would think, oh, well, they would never leave for the Big 12. Or a lot of people think, oh, well, they're just hankering to go. And while, yes, there are some schools in the Pac-12 that, if they had their druthers would go.
Some are more ready and willing than others. There's no question about that.
No question. And I think that's only natural with the situation. But to sit here and say that the whole conference is just looking to burn it to the ground is just not realistic. And I think you have to understand that each of these school situations is a little bit different, where Washington State has a small athletic budget, Oregon's piling on the cash, where USC had a massive budget, now Utah's got an interesting budget situation, let's say. Like, all these situations are different, and it all comes back to that you're not making money hand over fist the same way that the SEC or the Big Ten is. And you notice these conferences who are making a bunch of money are also quite successful in athletics. You either get it or you don't, and I think that's the struggle for the Pac.
Well, I also think you look at this ACC story today. The ACC changed their business model today, or began the process of changing their business model in sports, where they are going to, apparently in lockstep with what the athletic director at Florida State said, they are going to reward postseason performance. And you're looking at a situation, if the Florida State athletic director gets his way in the ACC, where, hey, listen, what did they distribute? $39 million, I think it was.
Something like that, yeah.
Last year?
Yeah.
Where you could make an additional $10 million more if you succeed in the postseason in football and basketball. That's the kind of money where you're now at $50 million. Now, granted, that's bonus money that's getting you to $50 million, but that's better than 39.5 when the Big Ten's making 100, the SEC's making 50, and the Big 12's making 31.7. So you look at these situations, the ACC's got to be financially creative because nobody's paying that bill to get out.
Yeah,
nobody is paying that bill to get out. But you look at now the SEC, and I know we've talked about this on the show, and the SEC's TV deal does not any longer look stellar. Where they're bringing home $50 million, it doesn't feel like some windfall anymore compared to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Big 12 and you look at the SEC and you look at where you look at where the ACC's at and you look at where the Pac-12's at, that SEC TV deal now feels like the right move at the right time. And it feels like this Big 12 business model where, we're making 31.7 on our TV deal, but we're going to Mexico and we're going international and we're going to Rucker Park and we're doing Kansas City and we're doing Big 12 Media Day again at Dallas and we're doing an NFL Pro Day in Dallas. Like, it feels like that's the business model now in college athletics, where you have to create these other revenue streams because the ATM machine simply isn't functioning anymore on the TV side. And I think this ACC announcement today, where you're looking at incentivizing athletic programs who are postseason viable and successful in the postseason, I look at San Diego State, and maybe they're the best example of this. If San Diego State made an extra $10 million on their postseason run, well, hell yeah, you'd be a lot more satisfied, wouldn't you?
Yes.
If Florida State is incentivized to go to the college football playoff and go to bowl games and make the NCAA tournament because they're going to get an extra $10 million, well, yeah, you're going to be a little more aggressive.
Yes.
I think that's the business model that we're talking about. But having said that, another source today told me very directly that they know the end is near in the Pac-12. And I think that's why you're seeing these stories now come together where, I do believe that every school in the Pac-12 has made a decision now. They know, hey, if this, then that.
Right.
It is as simple as I can say it. If it's less than 25 million, then we're going here.
Pack your shit. Let's go.
If it's more than, we're staying here.
Yeah.
That much is very clear now, because when you have sources in the conference telling us, hey, you know what? We know the Pac-12 knows the end is near.
Yeah.
They know that this TV deal is coming in. I think most of them know that it's going to be and if I had to guess today on May 24th, I would probably be leaning towards a CW regional deal that's, $15 million and a $5 million deal with ESPN.
Yeah.
And I think you're looking at something in the order of a $19 to $20 million deal. If it's less than $25 million, then most of this conference is going to call home somewhere else in 2024.
Yeah.
I just think that's the reality of it.
Well, and I think you have these certain, President Robbins at Arizona obviously is the one we always talk about, but you have these certain presidents that are bullish on talking about what the future looks like. And I think that at some point you have to you have to draw a line in the sand if you're a president, right? Like,
Yes.
where President Robbins draws his line is, hey, we're just straight up talking about the fact that, hey, if the number's this, then we're going there. Exactly what he just said. If you're President Schultz up in Washington State, you're more worried about talking about ESPN, bringing in Pat McAfee in the optics than you are talking about, the fact that you're $70+ million in the wrong direction on your P&L sheet. So,
but again, maybe this goes to what Stephen Smith was saying. He gave us a $20 tip to say, I think what ASU AD Ray Anderson said about still having a chance on a TV deal for the Pac-12 while Arizona is ready to go if things don't improve is very interesting. It seems that Arizona has information ASU doesn't have on a TV deal. But I also think Arizona State is horribly mismanaged. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this on the show yesterday. You look at these different schools, The ones that are well managed do not talk.
Yeah.
They do not overreach, and they do not extend.
Mm-hmm.
And they do not make asses of themselves in public.
Yeah.
Washington and Oregon haven't said word one on this. Not a word. But you look at a guy like Ray Anderson at Arizona State, who pretty much stuck his foot in his mouth when he said, oh, yeah, we're going to announce our TV deal, and then we're going to go get a grant of rights, which is absolutely not how you're going to do this.
Yeah.
Even if you get a TV deal that works and everybody's staying, you're not announcing that TV deal until you have a grant of rights.
Yeah.
You're not doing that because you wind up in situations very similar to the Big Ten, even though their grant of rights is in place and everybody seems to be in lockstep. You have controversies like this.
Yeah.
And in a conference where there is so little confidence and so little unity like the Pac-12 right now, you look at Ray Anderson, that's absolutely a disaster. You just can't have that.
Well, and it does feel kind of like a yapping dog in a sense, where
Yes.
you have, a guy
Yes, it
talking
does.
about something that he clearly somehow, some way, and I'm not really sure how, to be quite honest with you, but somehow, some way doesn't know how a TV deal is put together. And again, I'm not saying I know all the intimate details of a Pac-12 TV deal contract or what that would look like, but I definitely know the mechanics of it and how that is going to work, which is you have to have your school signed off on a potential TV deal before you go to the media talking about how you got some TV deal. Like that just is natural. You would never in business go to the media, then go to your schools. Like that doesn't make sense. And so I think I actually feel like the Ray Anderson thing kind of flew under the radar as far as the national media is concerned.
Oh, I think he got away with murder, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think that a lot of people talked about it. We talked about it, obviously, but I don't think a ton of people noticed it or even heard it. And I think that's what's surprising to me and kind of plays to Steven's comment. Like, Arizona and President Robbins basically get run every time they talk. People listen. But then at Arizona State, it really depends who talks. Is it Michael Crow? Is it Ray Anderson? Who the hell is it? And that, I think, is a big factor in why Ray Anderson got away with that.
Yep, I agree. Warren Boyd gives us $5 to say, keep on talking hard, Monty and Jake. Well, but listen, dude, I think if you watch this show on a regular basis, and I think if you've been here for the better part of and most people here, I think, are probably newer to this show.
Yeah.
We don't speak out of turn on this show. It's not something where we're like, well, we don't have anything to talk about. Let's make up that's not what we do on this show. We don't aggregate. We don't talk about, we regularly credit the people that we talk about, like the Marchand podcast. What am I going to take that information that I've already reported? On this show, you get the truth. The problem is when you're a small fry fish like we are,
right?
I'm a little anchovy next to the Marlins. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have no problem. I have no problem tooting my own horn because if I'm not my biggest fan, I probably don't have a fan.
Yeah.
Right? I have no problem doing that. I just don't. I don't see how that is. And hey, if that's an issue for you guys, I'm sorry it upsets you.
I don't think he's saying that's an issue. I don't think Warren's saying that.
Okay. I don't know what Warren's saying. I don't pretend to read minds. Two Masters says, poor SMU, they got their hopes up for nothing. Well, but you're not wrong. And again, I want to go back to San Diego State like we talked about on the show yesterday.
Yeah.
What are you going to do if you're San Diego State right now? I have no idea how you handle yourself. If you're San Diego State in this situation, I don't think the Pac-12 is any longer an option for you.
No.
I really
I just don't know how you look at the Pac-12 and its track and its future and its projection, and you think that it's a good idea on any level. I mean, I just don't see that. I mean, I understand you're in the Pac-12's footprint, but again, like, that's all fine and dandy, but you can't put yourself in a bad position. I mean, I just have a lot of trouble thinking. And again, I adamantly disagreed, and I thought that J.D. Wicker made a big mistake talking about this when he did. However, I still don't think J.D. Wicker is this guy who's just dumb and has no idea what he's doing. I mean, I can't believe that you look at the Pac-12 and you say, yeah, man, they're going to get a deal, and it's going to be $40 million, and we're going to be fine, and we'll join that. It used to be, you notice it used to be that everyone kept saying that they're going to get a deal, and it's going to be more than the Big 12, more than the Big 12. Now you don't really hear that anymore, right?
No, you don't.
You hear people saying, yeah, they'll probably get a deal. It's like what Marchand said at the beginning of the show. Hey, yeah, they'll get a deal. When that happens, I don't know. And who it's going to be with, I don't know. Like, that's where it's at now. So if you're San Diego State, I don't see how you look at anywhere else besides the Big 12 because I think it's just a natural fit.
But again, I go back to San Diego State and the Big 12. Is San Diego State a great fit for the Big 12?
I think they are. Nah, they're not better than a couple other options, but I still think that doesn't make them a bad fit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get the impression that San Diego State is the biggest fish in the Pac-12 expansion pool. Like I don't. I think if you're talking about really the brands that the Big 12 is looking at and the brands that I think they have to have, I'd put Gonzaga basketball at the top of that list. Yeah, I think Gonzaga's at the top of that list. I absolutely think the Arizona schools. I absolutely think Colorado. I absolutely think Utah.
Yeah.
I think those 5 are must-have. And then, again, today, and I know I say this at pretty much every day, but just talking to folks today, the name that I keep hearing is Oregon State. Oregon State. Keep your eye on Oregon State in the Big 12. I have not heard 4 weeks. Oh, keep your eye on San Diego State, the Big 12. Oh, San Diego State to the Big 12, done. I think when we talk about schools who are like, yeah, we're going to hang on for a minute.
Yeah.
I think J.D. Wicker got nervous. And I think that's why he went to a friend of his at The Athletic. And I am now told that San Diego State reached out to The Athletic to plant that quote. I think that it very much was nervous time because I think, as we've said for weeks, there is no golden goose coming for the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.